Jones. This is the Van Jones Show, Season 1, Episode 1. Thank you for being here from the very beginning. I appreciate you very much. Appreciate you very much. Also here, we have a local rapper you may have heard of. The legendary Sean Jay-Z Carter is in the building. My first guest ever. Just so amazing. Later, we're going to move from Jay-Z's American success story to the scene of an American tragedy, Charlottesville, Virginia, where American Nazis marched and murdered. We're going to go back there. We're going to see how much healing has taken place, how much learning has taken place since homegrown white terrorists tore apart an American town. So you're going to see that too. But first, let's just talk. You know, where are we today as a nation as we start this show? Trump, year 1 is done. This is year 2, and I call it a tale of 2 presidencies. All right, y'all may not like this, but here's the messy truth about it. Things are actually better than many Trump supporters had hoped, and they are worse than many Trump opponents had feared. So, you got to admit this, you got to look at it honestly. The economy is actually doing pretty well so far under Trump. Many people have predicted a stock market meltdown if he won. But the reverse actually happened. Trump actually continued Obama's bull market and accelerated it, which means my 401k looks pretty amazing right now. And so does yours. I mean, that's just the truth. And unemployment numbers, they were going down under Obama. They kept dropping, still dropping. The tax cut made a bunch of people happy. So Trump's supporters honestly have a great deal to be both relieved and even excited about. But record numbers of Americans cannot stand this president. They live in daily outrage and fear about what he is doing to us as a country. We now have a commander-in-chief who picks fights with truth-seeking journalists, with his own FBI agents, with football players. But he somehow bungled the chance to stand up forcefully to Nazi terrorists and to Russians who are messing up our elections. We have a president who still is demonizing immigrants, who has left hundreds of thousands of American citizens in Puerto Rico right now without electricity. Still, remember them? They're still there. He's done nothing for them. Who casually threatens nuclear war, who dismisses the climate crisis, who wanted an accused pedophile in the U.S. Senate, and who allegedly gave hush money to a porn star mistress. It's so insane. He creates so many controversies every day, nobody can even keep up anymore. And the madness has divided the country so much that half of us can barely speak to the other half the time. So here's the contradiction. Our economy is coming up, but our society is coming apart. That's the truth. Now, which one of those 2 facts is more important to you? And it matters a lot because this year, in November, we the people finally get to vote again. We get to vote. So, you know, we've got to get smart about how we see the situation. This show is designed to pop these bubbles we've all been living inside of so you can get a better insight into how your fellow Americans really feel about stuff. And you can't understand politics today without understanding the whole picture, from media and culture at the highest levels all the way down to grassroots movements at the deepest levels. From the women of Me Too, yes, including these white supremacists who call themselves the alt-right. I'm a big believer that no one person or party or candidate has all the answers. So we're going to be using everything from road trips to social media to hear directly from you. So from the unknown to the infamous to the famous, everybody's got a place in this conversation on this show. And speaking of world famous, with the rise of Trump, pop culture has taken over politics, and now politics is taking over pop culture. There's only one man who can help us understand all of that and even more. He is the founder of Rock Nation. He is the co-owner of the streaming service called Tidal. He is a 21-time Grammy winner. He got a house made out of Grammys. And he got nominated for 8 more tomorrow night. Please welcome to the Van Jones Show, Sean Jay-Z Carter. Turn the music up too. Oh, yeah. to see you. Good to see you.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, my goodness. This is nuts. Oh, this is crazy.
This is nice, man.
You know,
This is nice. They hooked you up. You got a nice spot going.
No, they did me up right. Yeah, CNN. When they heard you were coming.
Yeah.
You know, I never knew how many people loved me and cared about my career until you said you was coming. All of a sudden, I got cousins like, hey, you know, I just want to be there to support you, and I got a mixtape, you know, I want to. So anyway, so it means a lot to have you here. You know,
thank you.
This album, the 444 album, you've got all these awards and nominations. One of the things that blew my mind, though, is when you had the video on Family Feud, and you showed Blue Ivy having grown up to either save the world or take over the world, and she's rewriting the Constitution, all that type of stuff. And it's just beautiful, just so powerful to show women of color with that kind of standing. Mm-hmm. But Blue Ivy must be dope, man, for you to be like sending that kind of a love letter to her. What is it about Blue Ivy that you love so much you want to do a song like this about her?
Man, she's just special, man. She's someone who's definitely been here before. Everyone says that, but I believe that because she has she's so in tune to her feelings and others, you know, how other people feel. Mm-hmm. We were seeing a fire from my house. This is before the fires just recently in Los Angeles, and it was far off, and she just seen smoke, and she just started crying. And I don't want anyone to be hurt. Wow. Like, that's the type of
empathy
and human being that she is at such a young age. And that concept was dreamt up by myself and Ava
DuVernay.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's amazing too.
I wish we could have taped the phone conversations because they were beautiful. You know, just dreaming up this world where there would be no more firsts for black people. Like, all the firsts had been accomplished. So let's move that out of the conversation. That conversation is done.
Check.
So where do we go from here? You know, which is a beautiful thing that we dreamt up, and I'm glad that people respond to the way.
I mean, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And, you know, it's just, you don't even realize what you're missing in the culture until somebody shows it to you. You know, we have a lot of, you know, black people have a lot of history, but very little future. We got a whole month for Black History, but we haven't even got like a Black Future weekend. Like, we never talk about the future, you know. So, you know, to be able to see that and also to see it so women-centered in this Me Too moment, in this Time's Up moment, does that give you hope for your daughters? I mean, how do you make sense of this new rise of women's voices? Yeah, I think it's again, I believe everything happens for a reason. You know, everything is a learning experience. You know, the good, bad, and the ugly, and you know, this had to happen to purge itself, you know, for you know, men who've been in position for so long. And then, of course, if you're in that position of power to abuse your power, you get drunk off success. It's like human nature. If you go unchecked, it takes a really special person to have that sort of power and not wield it. Not abuse it. Yeah. In the wrong way. So, you know, it has to happen. This movement and everything that's going on, and this what we're finding out, it's like everything else. It's like racism, like everything. It existed the whole time, and it's almost like we normalized it. Yeah. The normalization of the things we have to do to survive. Like, for women to like go to work knowing that this sort of abuse was happening every day. Because you can look and, you know, logically you'll say, why would you stay there? Right. Yeah, what's the alternative? Yeah. What's the alternative? You have to survive in America, and in order to survive, you have to normalize it. So this has been going on. So for it to get uncovered and the world to correct itself, that's beautiful. This is what has to happen. Well, you know, you now have two daughters to worry about because you have twins. I'm here to warn you about something.
I'm not worried about my children.
Yeah.
I know it's a word, but I don't even want to put that out there in the world. You know what I'm saying? I'm hopeful for my daughters. The amount of information that we'll give them and the amount of love between those two things, you know, they'll be fine.
They'll be all right. Yeah. That's good. That's beautiful. Man, I how you keep it positive. I will say you have a set of twins.
Yeah.
I want you to know something. I'm a twin. I have a twin sister. Her name is Angela. Hello, Angela. And just be prepared because twins are no joke. We can like telepathically scheme on the parents.
Yeah, yeah.
We be like, I'm gonna cry from 1 to 3 a.m. and then you pick it up from 3 to. Are they driving you nuts? We drove our parents nuts. How are they having twins as a super dad?
It's actually we're in a beautiful time now because they're 7 months and they can't move. They can just cool. They're just cool, and you don't have to like wait. They're not running anywhere yet. So we gonna enjoy these couple months until they start running, and then it's gonna be over. Yeah.
Now speaking of running, Blue Ivy got to run around in the Obama White House a little bit. Do you think that these twins will be running around in the Trump White House much?
No, that's not a shot.
But why not? I was thinking about this honestly. Like,
well, we won't be invited, first of all.
But I mean, when Trump could, he could say, "Listen, I'm the first hip hop president. I get in beefs with people. I like bling. I got a plane. I mean, he could make a play. What if he made a play?
Yeah, well, he doesn't have the struggle, right?
That's the key.
That's the key.
Yeah.
That's the key.
I want to talk to you a little bit about this because as a parent, trying to raise black kids. With all the positivity we give them, we have a president that comes and says every African country is a shithole country. I mean, how does that land with you as a dad?
Yeah, it's disappointing and it's hurtful. It really is hurtful, more so. Like everyone feels anger, but after the anger, it's really hurtful because like you're looking down on a whole population of people, and you're so misinformed because these places have beautiful people and have beautiful everything. Yeah. And it's just like this is the leader of the free world speaking like this. But on the other side, this has been going on. Yeah. This is how people talk. This is how they talk behind closed doors. There was a moment where Donald Sterling had been exposed as this racist on a private phone conversation that he was having. And they took his team from him. And it's like, okay, that's one way to do it. But another way would have been let him have his team and then let's talk about it together and let's maybe discussion. Some penalties, but because once you do that, all the other closet racists just run back in the hole. You haven't fixed anything. What you've done was spray perfume on a trash can. And what you do when you do that is, the bugs come and you spray something and then they come and then you create a super bug. Right? Because you don't take care of the problem. You don't take the trash out. You just keep spraying whatever over it to make it acceptable. And then, as those things grow, then you create a super bug. And then now we have Donald Trump, the super bug.
That's going viral, I think. but it's a really good point. I mean, it sounds like you're almost kind of happy that
Donald Trump is a human being too. I just want you. I just think I'm being funny. I think I say that too. But somewhere along his lineage, something happened to him. Something happened to him, and he's in pain, and he's like expressing it in this sort of way. Yeah.
I mean, it's in the hood, you see that a lot. People, sometimes people acting out the worst after the worst things happen to them.
That's right.
Just to give him a little bit of credit too, let me ask you this: he is somebody who's now saying, "Look, I'm growing. I'm dropping black unemployment. Black people are doing well under my administration." Does he have a point? That maybe the Democrats have been giving us good lip service but no jobs. Maybe he's going to say terrible things but put money in our pocket. Does that make him a good leader?
No, because it's not about money at the end of the day. Money doesn't equate to like happiness. It doesn't. That's not missing the whole point. We treat people like human beings, and then that's the main point. You can't treat someone like it goes back to the whole thing. You treat me really bad and pay me well. Right. It's not going to lead to happiness. It's going to lead to again, the same thing. Everyone's going to be sick. And your point about that, on the Democrat side is, it's been a lot. That's what opened the door for this sort of presidency, right? For many years, guys middle America and things. They've been voting Democrat because that's what their family did.
That's
so
right.
they just did it as a reflex. Like, yeah. And, their needs wasn't addressed. It was just more so, okay, let's just get this vote, because this vote, it became about votes and not people. That's my problem with government is I think they forget that it's real people behind these decisions that they're making. We're not 25,000 votes in this area. It's like people going through real thing in real time and then real pain. And when you ignore those, that pain for so long, people they'll act out. And it's like, man, I want to see something different. I don't know. And then that opens the door for what we're living through now.
The thing I want to, that's, the thing that is so beautiful about you and so beautiful about what you're doing is that for so long, hip-hop was this sort of, pose of boasting and accusing. I'm great, you suck. Mm-hmm. And also, that's what politics has now become.
Yeah.
My party's great, you suck.
Yeah.
And all accusation, no confession. With your album, you have come out with a confessional hip-hop. If people in D.C. were as honest as you, we would have no problems at all. So I just want to appreciate you for what you're doing. We'll talk about it more. We have so much more to talk about with you, Jay-Z. Coming up, and we have both been fighting on the same side of a really, really tough issue that we believe in. But first, I told you I wanted you to hear from the voices of real people on this show in a minute. So I went out on my social media channels and I asked you to send me videos of how Trump is doing. Take a look at what the American people have to say.
I want to let everyone know that I'm an avid supporter of Donald Trump.
I'm afraid that we're losing our soul as a nation.
Donald Trump is doing a really good job.
I finally understand how fragile our democracy is.
Welcome back to the Van Jones Show. I'm talking to my guest, Sean Jay-Z Carter. I'm going to make him my co-host. You are just so good at so many things. But one of the things I think people don't know that you are and that you're good at is that you're actually a sports agent. You decided to not only change the game in music, but also you saw athletes being taken advantage of, and you now represent athletes through Rock Nation. So I got a question for you. Colin Kaepernick. Mm-hmm. Here's a guy, he is now, I think, an American hero, sticking up for civil rights, sticking up for police reform, sticking up for the First Amendment. He's a legend. He's going to go down with the Muhammad Ali's or whatever. But he lost his job. If you were his sports agent, Jay-Z is the sports agent for Colin Kaepernick. And before this all happened, he came to you and said, I want to do this. Would you have said, do it, don't do it? What would you have counseled the brother?
Oh, 100% do it.
Wow.
I mean, look how many people play football. They're not all going to be him. Like, you just put his name next to Muhammad Ali. Would you rather be playing football, getting your head dinged in, or would you rather be an iconic figure for the rest of your life? A job that I think people, again, we confuse the idea of having a job with fulfilling your purpose.
Yeah, you turned into church.
Everybody's like,
Yeah, that's deep. Somebody else who we both care a lot about is Meek Mill. Mm-hmm. He's a part of the Rock Nation family. Mm-hmm. A terrible judge sent him back to prison for maybe 2, maybe 3 years for a minor probation violation. Mm-hmm. But that would have been the time a lot of business people cut ties. Rather than cutting ties, you doubled down, tripled down. You're fighting for him right now. Why are you taking such a strong stand for Meek Mill?
Well, Meek is a beacon, right? He's a vessel to light go through to bring attention to this issue, because this is not the first time this happened. This is, unfortunately, in America, this happens to black and brown people way too often.
What happens?
When you're on probation, you're on this paper you do a crime, you do whatever time you do, and then you're on paper for, he's been on probation for 11 years.
11 years for a fairly minor offense.
11 years. So now it's almost like you're tethered to this thing, and they're just waiting for you to do something wrong. And every time, something happened, the guy popped the wheelie. He was shooting the video, and he popped the wheelie in the street, which is a minor offense, right? It's like your kid goes to a skateboard park and skates where he was not supposed to, and someone gives him 2 years.
2 years in prison.
In prison.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And again, Meek comes from a tough neighborhood, so he's going through his trials and tribulations. We're not sitting here professing that he's some angel, but in this particular incident, that the whole system needs to be reworked the way that.
What's amazing about you is you're not just doing it for him. You're not just rapping about it. You're actually out here really fighting for stuff. You wrote that piece in the New York Times about the bail industry and how the bail industry is a huge racket. So I took inspiration from your piece, and I actually made my own video explainer to people, because people don't even know what's going on. So check out this video explainer that I did on the bail bond industry, which you've been writing about and fighting about as well.
Your bonds are set at $5,000.
Your bond is $3,500.
I'm going to leave your bond at $5,000.
The bail system works by taking money from a defendant in exchange for their release. But if a person can't afford bail, they just have to sit in jail. On an average day, 721,300 people are being held in our jails. But 66% of those people are being held pre-trial, meaning they haven't even been convicted of a crime. So while you're sitting in that cell, you or your family member can try to pay the bond, but for some people that can mean foregoing basic needs like child support or shelter or food. Remember, you're not just in jail for a night or two. You're there until your trial actually starts. That could be weeks or months or years. Like Khalif Browder, who was 16 years old when he was accused of stealing a backpack. His bail was set, though, at $3,000, which he didn't have and couldn't afford. So he ended up spending 3 years at Rikers Island waiting for trial. There he was beaten, he was abused, he was held in solitary confinement. When the charges were later dropped, he was just released. But 2 years later, he was still so traumatized that he killed himself. Jail affects people of color way disproportionately. Black people are jailed at almost 4 times the rate of white people. Leaders on both sides of the aisle agree this is a really big problem. You actually executive produced a documentary about Khalif Browder, that young man who was held in prison, held in jail for 3 years and hadn't been convicted of anything. And so much you're doing. Why do you care personally so much about the issue of criminal justice reform? Because you're all over it.
I had a friend who got killed in jail, and I come from these neighborhoods, so I know Khalif Browder. So when I seen this story in New York, I reached out to him before all this happened. I met with him. He came to the office. I just wanted to give him some words of encouragement, and he left. He was pursuing his GED. He was in college, I think in the Bronx. I'm almost sure, and I've seen this story so many times, and I haven't seen it. In the case of Khalif, I thought it had a happy ending. He came home. He went through the worst. He got through it all. He came home. He was pursuing. He was in college. He had and then 2 weeks later, it was like he had committed suicide.
Mental health, trauma, PTSD is so rampant in our community. But as scared as black folks are of the cops, we even more scared of therapists. Like, we're not trying to go to therapy.
Yeah, it's a stigma.
It's a stigma. It's a stigma, and people are dying. You went to therapy, you talk about it. How did you get over the stigma of going to therapy and then talking about it? Because you might you might save a life just talking about that.
Well, as you grow, you realize the ridiculousness of the stigma attached to it. It's like, what? You just talk to someone about your problems, And I think actually it should be in our schools. I think children have the most going on. Their mind are not fully developed, and teenagers, and you're drinking and you're doing damage to your brain, and all these things are happening to you, and you don't know how social anxiety and all these things are happening to you, and you don't have the language.
That's right.
You don't have the language to navigate it. How can you navigate it? How can you know when a guy is bullying you? All you have to do is say, "Man, you okay?" It could change the whole thing. So as opposed
those kind of tools and skills
Yeah.
can get out of therapy, which we don't have
Yeah.
enough of in our community. Look, we are going to come back more with Jay-Z. We're going to be talking about the Grammys, diving into the new album. But first, here's more of what you had to say about the state of our union.
He's incompetent, ridiculous, foolish, embarrassing.
I'm excited to support a man who stopped the Islamic terror of ISIS.
He has inspired people to become more engaged.
I truly love the respect he's brought back for the police and for our flag and for our veterans.
New year, new phones for the family. Join T-Mobile, and when you buy one of the latest Samsung Galaxy phones, get a Samsung...
Closed captioning brought to you by Herpes and L.
We are back with Sean Jay-Z Carter. Now, look, this is a huge weekend for you. You're nominated for 8 Grammys tomorrow, tonight. That's 8 more than you, by the way, just in case you was wondering on the math. And also tonight you're receiving the Industry Icon Award for your music and for your philanthropy. So, unbelievable stuff. But I want to get into this album, man. I feel like the 444 album is like this breakthrough into freedom for you personally and really for all of us. Nobody cared more about freedom that I know than Prince. And you give a shout out to Prince on the album, which really touched me. A lot of people don't know that you were his business partner. You were the last person he wanted to do business with. After he beat the music industry, he wanted to be with you. Tell us about the significance of that relationship between Prince Rogers Nelson and Sean Jay-Z Carter for you.
Really deep for me. It really was because, just to watch this guy and how brave he was. This man put slave on his face at a time where we all were like, man, Prince is weird. And then to come to find out, he was fighting for his masters the whole time. He was fighting for his freedom the whole time. And for him to come, he came to me. I didn't even have the nerve to call him and say, like, he came to me and said, I know what you're doing. I'm going to give you all of my work. Like a person who fought for their work their whole entire life to come to your office and say, I know what you're doing here. It was a really deep thing for me.
You just explained how you feel about him. I want to tell you how he felt about you, because I work with him very closely too. And he saw you as being the one who had finally beaten the system that had beat down black entertainers for a century. And for him, he loved Egypt, and you talk about Egypt and when Africans were builders and owners and stuff, and he saw you in that line of a black builder and owner, and he wanted to make sure that you knew that he had your back. And for me to see a brother, he didn't just. He had love for everybody. He didn't have respect for everybody. He had respect for you, brother. And I just want you to know it meant the world to him.
Thank you.
So let me just move on. This album is a gateway drug to freedom. I mean, it is unbelievable what you've been able to do. It's about financial freedom. Everybody talks about that OJ song like it's about OJ. That song is an ode to financial freedom. I've never seen a rapper rapping about investing in art. You know what I mean? Collector art and buying property and real estate. How important for the African American freedom agenda is intergenerational wealth, being able to give your kids not just good advice, but goods.
That's right.
How important is that?
When you have your own independence and you're bringing something to the table, you can ask for something, you can say, it's not right, and then you can ask for something until we come to the table as a collective with our own power base and our entertainment. That's our natural resource. Until we come to the table with our own, as well as other things, with our own power base, nothing will change. It will not change. You can talk, we can riot, we can rally. Nothing will change until we are providing a service, and we're not the entertainment. We're not. It's just not like I'll pay you, and then when you leave, I'll pay the next guy.
But to be able to own it,
we have to own.
Yeah.
We have to own what we produce.
Prince said, "If you don't own the masters, then the master owns you."
There you
so
go.
that's about freedom.
Yeah.
More freedom in your album. Freedom for the LGBTQ community. Your song about your mother coming out the closet, Smile. I mean, it's beautiful. And then the video is so beautiful. You know, showing African American women in such a beautiful, respectful, you know, and subtle way. What did it mean to you to be able to write a song like that about your mother?
It was beautiful because it was just really, I was at the end of the three-quarters of the way done with the album, and my mom had came to me and she was like, she just sits in my, I know when she has something on her thing, she gets like a movement, like she sits and she's like, and I'm like, what's happening? And she's like, I think I'm in love. And we had never spoke like that. Like, you know, we always knew that she was gay her whole life, and we just never addressed it. And the fact that she trusts me, she felt so safe with me that she can say that, one. And two, the fact that I just felt the weight of the world lift off her shoulder. I cried. I don't even believe in like crying for happy moments. I'm from Marcy Project. We cry for happy. Who does that? I didn't think that was like a real thing. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not like literally cried. I just was so happy for her that she didn't have to hide anymore. Mm-hmm. And so I wrote this song, and I couldn't wait. So I played it for her, and she said, absolutely not. And I was like, wait, no, this is beautiful. Like, this is freedom. Like, people tell your story, you get to tell your own story. And then she had to sit with it. Because you got to imagine, she's been holding this in her whole life. So it took her a second, and then when she overcame that fear, she wrote that poem at the end, and then she flew to where I was at. She
so many.
I talk too much, huh?
No, I'm talking too much. Everybody's saying, shut up and let Jay do Jay. We'll see you next weekend. But no, I just am thinking about so many black people have still that stigma.
Yeah.
And they'll say, well, I love the person, but I can't love that lifestyle. How does that sound to you thinking about your mother?
I don't even understand that. It's another form of oppression. Like, it's no different than people looking at black people for how they carry on with their life. It's what anyone does in their own bedroom, in their own the freedom of America. We live in America. This is
the whole point.
Free. That's the whole. Yeah. That's the whole ethos of the country. The whole thing was built on that, right? Correct. And it's a negative way of looking at life.
The other freedom I see in the album is just a freedom for couples who have gone through something.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing. You know, it's almost a cliche, you know, the celebrity couple, you know, they get together, they break up, you know, I'm like, well, who else are they going to go out with? But for some reason, you took an unprecedented stand to fight for this marriage. Mm-hmm. I mean, to fight for it and to put it all out there. What is it about this marriage that's so special that you would fight this hard to save it?
Well, it's my soulmate. It's the person I love, you know. And you can be in love with someone. You can love someone and if you haven't experienced love and you don't understand it and you don't have the tools to move forward, then you're going to have complications, period. And if you can either address it or you can pretend until it blows up at some point. And, you know, for us, we chose to fight for our love, for our family, to give our kids a different outcome. You see, to break that cycle. For black men and women, you know, to see a different outcome. Like you were saying, it's not this celebrity couple. We were never a celebrity couple. We were a couple who just happened to be celebrities.
That's beautiful.
Like real people.
Yeah. What advice would you have for men who have caused pain in marriages? I mean, it's easy. I mean, somebody like you.
The best apology is change behavior, right? Mm-hmm. But change behavior, one, and then also you have to acknowledge. You have to acknowledge the pain. You have to let that person have their say. You have to get on the floor, get on the mattress, and you have to really work through it and really be honest. And no matter how many times, it takes a while. It's hard. It's very difficult. It's very difficult to hear, difficult to say. It's difficult to listen to that sort of pain. And you just have to be strong enough. You have to be strong enough to go through that, because on the other side is beautiful. In our case.
You know, that's a level of strength really on both sides. I mean, if the shoe had been on the other foot, you know, if the transgressions had been on her side, do you think you would be able to be as forgiving of her as she was of you?
I hope. Again, because I love her the same way. No matter what side, I love her the same way. I pray that I will, because her strength and her, you know, man, is the strongest woman I know. Like, her and my mother, they battling for number one.
Beautiful, beautiful. You know, I just want to say to you, you are blazing a trail, you know, for a lot of us to follow. You know, financially, culturally, you know, the idea of confession could save so much pain and suffering in politics and every place else. I honor you. You know, one of the guys said, you know, just make sure to ask him before he leaves, you know, is he in the Illuminati? And I said, no, I'm not going to ask that, but are you?
I'm in the new Illuminati.
That's good. Let's give it up for Sean J.G. Carter. First guest on the Man Zone Show. Oh, God is good. God is good. So look, we're going to turn from one of our brightest stars to one of our darkest moments when we get back. August 2007 in Charlottesville, Virginia. I traveled there to see how the residents feel about these Confederate monuments and the Nazi-inspired murder that shocked the world. I'm going to take you there when we come back. Thank you, and thank you, Jay-Z. Man, that's crazy.